Okay, let's dive into Black Mirror Season 7. First of all, looking at Bete Noire, written by Charlie Brooker, directed by Toby Haynes. In this episode, Maria is a food scientist at a chocolate company, and one day at work sees an old schoolmate named Verity Green, who is part of a tasting focus group. Verity tells everyone she's looking for a job at that company in R&D, and she's then hired very soon after. Maria begins experiencing some unexplainable differences in her work, her personal life. These inconsistencies increase and begin to impact her life in very strange ways. When mistakes that Maria makes eventually cause her to lose her job, she begins to suspect Verity is the one causing all of it because of the way Maria treated her back when they were in school together. After being fired, Maria breaks into Verity's home and discovers she's created a quantum computer that can reshape reality however Verity wants. She's been using it on those that have used to bully her. Maria is able to kill Verity. She takes control of the computer and changes her reality to be the Empress of the universe.
Hooray.
Quite a final last little shot there of that episode. You, I know, have strong thoughts on this episode. This is one that I would say was entertaining, but I don't know how much sort of a Black Mirror world it falls into. So, you want to kick us off on what you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction was that it was one of these episodes of Black Mirror that I sort of hate,
Hmm.
but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. I was making comparisons to people up to like Nosedive, which is an episode I find to be just incredibly frustrating. Like I want to reach through my screen and throttle people, you know? So I was having something of that experience. But then when it comes down to it, I'm really not sure that Bete Noire is even, as interesting as Nosedive, because I can think about Nosedive and say, oh, well, I don't enjoy watching that episode, but it's interesting. There are things to think about. I'm almost too on board with its point to where
Hmm.
like I don't need it. Right. You
Yeah.
remember that's the one where like every social interaction is rated like it's an Uber driver.
Yeah.
And with this one, I mean, maybe it is similar to the extent that I don't know what's the tagline? Bullying is bad.
Yeah. So I was having this conversation with a friend of mine who's been watching them as well, and we were talking about this similar idea that one of the appeals of Black Mirror are these often dark, ominous, ambiguous endings that make you think about, so, okay, what did I just see? What was right? What was wrong? How did it impact me? How do I feel about this? This one doesn't really seem to have that. I mean, it has a very odd ending, first of all, this idea of Maria just sort of shows up as the Empress of the universe and thousands of people bowing down to her. It just sort of takes you out of where you were for the first hour of this episode. But then, yeah, just what's the message that we're trying to say here? We all can agree that bullying is bad. We all can agree that, um, yeah, the idea of spreading misinformation and disinformation in this world is something that happens. But wasn't really sure what I took from it beyond that.
Yeah, and the tech involves. I had an issue with this a little bit too that I'll throw out into our conversation now, I guess. I mean, the tech involved seems a little too close to magic,
Mm.
you know, and maybe also I'm a little worn out on the multiverse Mandela effect kind of stuff at this point, and it's
Yeah.
playing with that. Um,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
biggest thing,
I like your
go
point
ahead.
about magic, where you just I mean, didn't mention the pendant, but just, you can put your finger on it, talk into it, and whatever you say appears. I don't think quantum computing works that way. I don't think that's how multiple realities exist, or how we can. But I really couldn't speak intelligently about that. But yeah, it does seem more like wizardry or magic than it does dark technology and the impacts of it.
Yeah, I mean, to my understanding, quantum computing doesn't really exist, although maybe there have been breakthroughs recently to where it kind of, sort of, maybe almost does. It's one of those things out there where um, there are, I mean, there is a real weirdness,
Yeah,
because potentially the quantum computer will function on the basis of that quantum strangeness,
yeah,
the entanglement, quantum entanglement, and stuff like this, But to my knowledge of it, which is clearly not like expert level here, the big thing is that quantum computing has the potential to be incredibly fast,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
I mean, it has the potential for a processing time that's like getting close to zero, you know.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's my understanding. So like could you think about some possibility that through a breakthrough in quantum computing, something like this could maybe theoretically be possible, I guess, but we're just kind of jumping to that, and the way it
Yeah,
functions
yeah,
is more like magic, right?
yes, yes,
Um, where I mean, I did want to point out in terms of how you put it, I guess it does seem to me like but she has to push the button and she asserts that something is reality and then it becomes reality.
yeah. The pendant is some kind of transmitter or receiver connected to the computer. She can, through her fingerprint, she can then open up the line to speak to it, and the computer processes and then does whatever. Which so much of what happens to Marie in this episode is tied into other pieces of technology, the email episode, the security footage episode. It's almost like then that quantum computer would have to be tied into the tech, all the other technology around it, and have that kind of power. Which, again, no idea how that would work or not work, but that's
It,
how
it,
she
it's
makes things happen.
it seems like in the background is the idea of many worlds theory,
Hmm.
where every possible world exists. So through her little pendant, she's shifting everyone to the world where, for example, no one knows what a nut allergy is.
Yes.
But then they have the wrinkle that, well, Maria it doesn't get shifted to that reality somehow, kind of, sorta,
Yeah.
and so I don't know that it even really holds up in terms of like how you would think that through, even if you're going to make reference to quantum mechanics and many worlds theory and all of that kind of thing. Well, then how do you explain that Maria is the only one who is, as it were, stuck in the old
Stuck
reality?
in it. And I had this same thought, so I'm glad we're bringing this up. So if you're talking about multiverses or many worlds or whatever you want to call it, in what world or what universe would there be a path where Maria would go drink the almond milk? There are none because she has a nut allergy. So you're just conjuring up worlds at that point because she would never go do that in a normal circumstance.
Well, I mean, I guess it would have to be one of the worlds where she doesn't have a nut
Doesn't
allergy.
have one at that, so it just sort of switches instantly, or it switched long before, but she's not aware of that. I guess
But
that's the other thing.
I think you're right to say this immediately after what I just said,
Yeah,
because it's like, okay, well, is the version of Maria changing from one to another between these realities? No, but then in here, I'm led to say it has to be yes,
yeah,
because otherwise she would never drink the almond milk. So yeah, I don't really know that it holds up. And so, okay, it's not interesting to me at that level. The one thing that ultimately I did find interesting to think about, and the one thing that made me feel like this does fit as Black Mirror, is that ultimately Verity says, oh, well, yeah, of course, when I created this technology, the first thing I did was like explore every way I could make my life as good as possible. Right. Like this Empress of the Universe thing. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's what it stands in for, though. Right.
yeah, exactly.
But ultimately, she found that unsatisfying.
Right.
Right. So there's this suggestion that like the kind of pinnacle of satisfaction potentially lies in taking revenge and enjoying the suffering of your enemies, right?
Yeah.
And that's very Black Mirror.
And that is very Black Mirror. It was just such a short line at the very, very end of this episode. It's like if that would have been a great idea to explore from the beginning. I like to
Yeah.
sort of lay the seeds of that when they talk about how she was treated and who said what and who
Oh
started the
yeah.
rumor and all that, but it doesn't it doesn't go down the path of, well, I am doing this because I was miserable, and I have found nothing that can get me out of that misery more than doing this to you.
Oh yeah, no, so I like this idea for an episode better, right?
Yeah.
You follow Verity, and maybe we start with her being bullied a bit in high school or whatever. We
Hmm.
follow her, she becomes successful, she figures out this technology, she explores all of the ways in which she can deploy it to like bring herself enjoyment, success, fame, glory,
Yep.
whatever, is dissatisfied with that, and then turns to, going to mess with her old bullies because she finds that to be more satisfying, and it's like
Yeah.
Schadenfreude's the meaning of life. Roll credits,
Yeah.
and you can have some parts the same, but I don't know. That was the thing I thought the most interesting. Do you want to talk at all about this article you put a link into with some comments from the actors?
Yeah, just found it interesting. You can look at. I mean, clearly these actors get interviewed and they get asked their thoughts on these episodes and what their impressions were of what they did and their thoughts on the meaning of each episode. And just found that for this one, I believe it was McEwen who plays Maria. I think I have that right. Her last name is McEwen. Rosie McEwen, she just gave an interview with Cosmopolitan where she said it's meant to be fun and silly. It's a romp, especially in a show where the themes can feel daunting. Um, okay, so this is just supposed to be like a jovial moment here, right at the beginning of the season. I don't really necessarily think that that's what Brooker and company were going for or want to go for with Black Mirror. So I just don't think she sort of drew out a lot of themes from it as she sort of got to the end of making this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that there's this implication that we're potentially supposed to be finding this humorist,
Mm,
which I could see that maybe, but it didn't land that way for me at all.
no.
Right. So if it had been done slightly differently, maybe, I guess, I could see that. But it's weird because the episode largely puts us on Maria's side, I think.
Yes,
So
yes.
as
And
she's being messed with, it's
you could certainly make an episode of this where there are humorous things that happen to Maria as a result of this, or silly things that happen to her. But no, it's all sort of centered around the idea of paranoia and hearing about the friend that took her life because of similar things happening. And so I didn't find this really fun or silly at all.
yeah, I definitely didn't find it fun. I really didn't enjoy watching it very much at all. So for me, it's the worst episode of season seven, but I'm still hesitating to say that it is bad per se, but I definitely enjoyed it the least and kind of found it the least interesting, I guess.
If it's at the bottom of what is overall a very good season,
Yeah.
I guess we're not comparing it, say, to season six. It's still overall sort of fits into a very good season.
Yeah, that would be tougher for me. I don't have Black Mirror episode rankings.
Yeah,
I know some people do this, and some
yeah.
publications have put them out, and so on and so forth. And I could theoretically do it, but it's always seemed to me like the kind of show where no one. hmm, Let me put that another way. I think everyone is going to agree that some Black Mirror episodes are better than others,
Hmm.
but then we're not going to agree which ones are which.
Yeah,
So,
that's
I
right.
find that more interesting. So, like, why would I want to assert my
Yeah.
rankings on the world, as it were? But just off the top of my head, I did think season seven overall was better than season six.
Yes.
And so, whether is Bete Noire better than every episode of season six in my mind, maybe except for Jonas Awful,
Okay. Okay.
is where I would land off the top of my head. But who cares? Um, I meant to mention earlier, I guess, of course, bête noire means like a person or thing you find particularly annoying. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
there's a way in which I do feel like the episode is aptly named and at a couple of levels. And yeah, I mean, again, like if there was meant to be humor here, that's another way in which it could have been better, is if it had been infused with a little bit more humor, but I
Yeah.
didn't feel that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you want to say about this one?
No, I think I'd like to move on and talk about Hotel Reverie if you're ready.
Yeah, I am.